How's it going, folks? Laughing here, and today I am doing another tier list, this time on Ash's companions he's had throughout the years. We're going to go from Kanto all the way up to present day as well. I'm going to throw them all up on the tier list. But before I get started, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out and helps the channel grow and be much appreciated. So real quick, I do want to give kind of a pre-warning. So I did kind of tier the characters based on their character themselves, their goals, and kind of where they start to where they end up. If there's any sort of character growth, character arc, what have you. So that was kind of one of the things I definitely kept in mind. There's a lot of Pokemon characters throughout the years that basically, start in one place and end in the basically exact same place, maybe with just slightly more experience. I feel like Ash himself as a main character is kind of like that too, for the most part. It's like just a complete reset whenever there's a new region or what have you, but kind of is what it is. So I do want to kind of keep those things in mind before we get into the video, because there are some very popular characters I know that are probably not going to end up where a lot of fans are going to want them to be. So kind of heads up, and yeah, let's get right into it. All right, so I'm going to be working my way kind of top to bottom here. But I don't want to start off on a bad note. I actually want to start off on a really good note. So one of the new characters in the latest season, his name is Go. He's actually really interesting. I dare say he's actually more interesting than Ash himself. His whole thing is he literally wants to catch them all. A fantastic callback to the original games, the original whole Pokemon tagline. Gotta catch them all. Ash has never really been about that. He's always been about being the strongest, being the best. A champion, a master of Pokemon. But Go is kind of taking a different approach. He literally just wants to catch them all, whether it be a common Pokemon like a Pidgey, all the way up to Zapdos. Yes, I said Zapdos. This guy is absolutely crazy. So he has not had a full story arc yet. So I do want to say that much, but I literally watched the new season not because of Ash. I don't care about Ash, even though he has a pretty decent team. I watch it because of Go these days. Kind of what he's gonna catch this week, what he's up to, and I dare say, as of now, he's actually an S tier character. I dare say. I know this might be kind of controversial. He's a brand new character. His character arc isn't even done yet. But I'm really kind of excited to see where Go finishes, because there's already been some kind of character formation, character arc for him, especially with him and his kind of starter Pokemon, Scorbunny. So yeah, Go is gonna find himself on the S tier. I really hope that he doesn't kind of drop down in later seasons, but we will see. So next up is gonna be Barry. So he did not travel with Ash for that long. He was in the Sinnoh seasons when they were traveling around with Dawn and Brock back then as well. And he was, I think, the most annoying character Pokemon has ever come out with easily. So he really didn't travel with Ash very long, thank God. But for the amount of time that he did, it was god awful. So Barry, yeah, he's going down to the F tier. I basically put him on this list just so I could give people my opinion on Barry. I do not like him as a character. I find him extremely annoying. He basically just shouts, yells, and is rude in general. He's the rudest character in Pokemon history that I can remember off the top of my head. So yeah, good riddance, Barry. I hope I never have to see you again in the anime. I have a feeling I'm gonna have to put up with you in the game still, though. So is what it is. You're never gonna be able to skip Barry, apparently. So next up is going to be the Rotom Dex. So kind of a strange kind of character in general. He's literally a Pokédex with the Pokemon Rotom in him. And he's kind of a surprising companion to Ash. He gives out a lot of good info. And he kind of keeps Ash and the viewer up to date and kind of what's going on. He also has some really funny character stories where he is a detective and he actually ends up meeting the detective character from the show that he watches a lot. He puts on a blonde wig. It's actually pretty humorous, to be honest with you. So he doesn't really have any sort of character arc really. He doesn't really go anywhere. He's funny though. He is actually a funny character, and he's above average, I think, as well. So he's gonna land in that B tier category. Yeah, overall, if they brought Rotom Dex back, no complaints on my end. I actually rather enjoyed him, even though a lot of times he's kind of compared to the one of the pixies or fairies in Zelda. There's a Navi, hey you. But I actually think he's not that annoying. I actually kind of enjoy him. So yeah, Rotom Dex gonna be in B tier. Next up is going to be Mallow. So Mallow is from the Sun and Moon series, same as the Rotom Dex. And this is where Ash is basically in the Hawaiian Islands, and he has a good time. He spends like a summer break there, but is still in school for some odd reason. Yeah, in general, she's an interesting character for the most part. She's different from some of the other characters on the list. But the issue with Mallow is you know where she is now, and you know where she's going to end up, and that's going to be her family's restaurant. Which, hey, nothing wrong with that. Her whole thing is, she wants to take over her dad's restaurant, the family restaurant. She helps out there when she's not at school. She has a lot of kind of character arcs and episodes kind of centered around that. And yeah, that's where she starts, and that's ultimately where she ends up. Not a bad character by any means. She's kind of more like Ash's, I guess, quote unquote, love interest, if you can say he really has one in any of the shows, besides maybe one character. So yeah, I mean, she's somewhat interesting. I think actually a lot of people rather like Mallow, but there's nothing really all that special to her. Like I said, she doesn't really go anywhere. I think she is kind of the epitome of a C tier character. Not bad, for the most part enjoyable, but doesn't really go anywhere, doesn't really do anything, doesn't make me laugh or really feel any way. So she's gonna sit very firm in that C tier category. So next up we have Sophocles, who is also a classmate of Ash's in the Sun and Moon series, friends with Mallow as well. His big thing is tech. He's really big into tech, building things, making new inventions, what have you. Not a really kind of new idea in terms of a character, but he's not horrible. He's just not that great. He does have somewhat of a character arc in there. He's kind of scared with some stuff, but ultimately just kind of forgettable. I'll be honest with you. I kind of forgot he was a thing, and not really all that interesting of a character in my opinion. I think like his big point of turmoil in the series was he might move away at some point, and then there's like a bug race with like little like RC cars, but the RC car is like a Pokemon. That's kind of his claim to fame. I don't know, just kind of not annoying, not a big fan. He's not bad, but he's below average in my book. So he's going to sit firmly in the D tier. Next up is we have Kiawe. Interesting character. He kind of plays almost a rival in this as well, but not quite. He's like Ash's, like lived in like rival basically, that he always kind of keeps around, always willing to battle with Ash, make Ash stronger in the series. But nice guy too, helps out on his family's farm, has a younger sister who he takes really good care of. He has a very hard exterior, but in general, just kind of a nice character. He comes off kind of strong, comes off kind of angry at first, but once you get to know him, he's actually really nice. He opens up more as a character, and I think becomes a little bit more interesting. He doesn't really move anywhere in the series. In fact, most of the characters from Sun and Moon really don't go anywhere in terms of a character arc. They kind of all end up at the same place that they were before, just with more experience. But Kiawe's still, a good character. I think he's actually one of the more solid companions of Ash's in the Sun and Moon series. So I am actually going to put him in the B tier. I think he definitely deserves that. He has a very interesting, kind of more special relationship with Ash, and I think that's kind of cool, actually. So B tier is where he will go. So next up, we're actually gonna kind of split away from the Sun and Moon just to kind of give us a break a second, and we're gonna talk about Dawn. So Dawn, actual like main-ish character with Ash. It was her, Ash, and Brock, just the three of them, kind of going back more to what more fans are more used to, with like Misty and May, what have you. So yeah, she in general, she's an interesting character. Her mom in the series used to be a big time Pokemon contest winner, and she's just looking to kind of follow in her mother's footsteps, and that is her goal from start to end. Doesn't really go anywhere but that. But you do see her kind of triumph through those, try to figure stuff out with the contests. It's definitely a struggle at first. There's a lot of gaffes. There's some laughs in there too. So yeah, in general, when it comes to an actual more of like a main character compared to what we've had so far, besides I guess Go, she's up there. So I'm gonna put her once again in the B tier. So doesn't really go anywhere. Once again, there's no real surprises on her journey. She, once again wants to be a contest winner, like her mom, and that's where she ultimately ends up. So we're gonna put her in B tier. I like her as a character. She was one of my favorite characters when this came out years ago now. Ultimately, yeah, not bad. Going back to Sun and Moon, just wanted a nice little break with Dawn there. We have Lana, and Lana is a fisher girl, if you will. She's pretty cool. She fishes a lot. That's pretty much her character. She loves water Pokemon, very similar to Misty in that regard. But once again, doesn't really go anywhere. She's big into fishing, and she ends big in the fishing. At one point, Ash even goes back to the island. Never guess what she's doing. She's fishing. So she does have some kind of cool episodes where she gets like a surfing Eevee, which is cool. She also has some interesting and I guess slightly annoying younger siblings that she takes care of as well. But in general, she doesn't really have a whole lot of character to her compared to Kiawe, which is where she's gonna just end up in the C category with Mallow. I think slightly better than Sophocles, but like she doesn't really go anywhere either. Yeah, just an okay character, just kind of average to me. So we are actually going to talk about Lillie. We're just going to knock out all these Sun and Moon characters right now, and there's a lot of them. They're like a good third of this whole tier list here. And Lillie's actually probably the best character from Sun and Moon. She starts out super scared of Pokemon, cannot touch them. She had a really bad traumatic incident that she doesn't really even remember, doesn't necessarily remember why she can't let Pokemon touch her. She eventually, gets an egg, hatches a Pokemon, and is able to overcome that fear. And she loves Pokemon, don't get me wrong, even though she's very afraid of them and doesn't want to let them touch her. She loves Pokemon at the same time. And we definitely kind of see her evolve, kind of dealing with stuff. She's always been kind of, just have done what she's told at the beginning of the series. And then at the end, she actually has some fight in her. She actually stands up for herself. So I actually really, really like Lillie as a character. She can be kind of annoying at times, but in general, she has a really good kind of character arc. She deals with a lot of kind of family issues in the show, which is actually kind of something a little bit more interesting from Pokemon, I feel. So I'm actually going to put her in the A tier. Believe it or not, I think they did a good job with her, with the family dynamics, her overcoming her fears, and they were pretty severe at the beginning of the series. And she goes from not being able to touch a Pokemon to actually having a Pokemon, and even somewhat willing to battle with them as well. Next up is Tracey, and Tracey is a mooch. So if you don't remember Tracey, he was like in the Orange Island arc, kind of after Ash's main expedition and kind of adventure in Kanto. And he joins Ash because he wants to meet Professor Oak. That's his arc. That's his entire arc. He's just like, hey, I'm gonna invite myself on your adventures so I can go meet Professor Oak. He eventually does, and then that's the end. He just literally uses Ash the entire time. He's not a bad guy, don't get me wrong, but like he's super boring. All he really does is sketch Pokemon. His last name is Sketchit. He's Tracey Sketchit. Like that's his name. I'm in general not a fan. I'm like in between E and F with Tracey, because literally just using Ash for the series. That's all he's doing. He's just using Ash to get the Professor Oak. really nothing all that interesting. However, he is less annoying than Barry, and he was actually in a movie at the same time. So I'm gonna put him in the E tier this time round. Um, yeah, he's not a very good character, but I can bear him much better than Barry. That's for sure. So next up, we have Clement and Bonnie. So they are brother and sister. Clement's actually an electric type gym leader in Kalos. He's pretty cool guy, and then his little sister kind of tags along as well. So figured we'll kind of talk about them at the same time. The weird thing is they are kind of like if you cut Brock in half. So Brock, smart guy, there to help, and so is Clement. There, his big thing is doing inventions. He's a gym leader, very similar to Brock, but he doesn't have the kind of womanizing side of him or at the very least a pining side of him where he just like sees a woman and just like instantly falls in love. No, that's not Clement. That's his little sister for Clement. So Bonnie basically not necessarily falls in love with other characters, but she's like, "Oh, will you marry my big brother?" Her whole thing, her whole identity for the most part is trying to marry off her big brother for some odd reason. And Clement's not really even that old, like maybe what 16. So I don't know, it's kind of weird to be honest with you. She does have some interesting kind of character arc with that. She gets a Pokemon that's called Squishy. It's actually not Squishy. It's actually a Zygarde core, actually. So she's, in general, a somewhat interesting character, but also kind of annoying, to be honest with you. Her only saving grace is the fact that she does have kind of an interesting relationship with the Zygarde core, but beyond that, kind of annoying and kind of weird, in my opinion. And she doesn't do anything. She doesn't super grow that much throughout the series. I think at the end she has a little bit of character growth, but beyond that, kind of meh. I think I'm gonna put Bonnie in the C category, almost to the D. Honestly, the whole Zygarde arc with her kind of saves her character. That is her saving grace, is the fact that she actually had a relationship with Zygarde, a very strong Pokemon. So yeah, that's where she is gonna end up there, and then rather Clement. He's an interesting character. He does learn some stuff throughout the journey. He's actually kind of funny. His whole thing is he tries to make technology and then usually blows up on him. It's a good gag every episode. And a lot of times that leads to a lot of kind of fun hijinks. More for the kids at the end of the day, but they're still somewhat enjoyable. So he is going to end up in the B tier category. I feel like that's just kind of where he belongs. He's not spectacular by any means, but he's definitely not bad. I think he is above average. All right, so here we go. We have Serena. So Serena's kind of an interesting character. She starts off not necessarily knowing what she wants to do. Her mom is all about, oh, you need to be a Rhyhorn racer. Because that's what her mom was. Somewhat similar to Dawn, they actually do have some kind of overlapping kind of story elements, except instead of just following in her mother's footsteps, she's basically fighting her mom on and what she's going to do in the future. Tries to figure out what she's going to do, tries to find her place in the world of Pokemon. I actually find that pretty interesting for the most part. She also has a really kind of strange old relationship with Ash as well. I guess they met at some like Professor Oak like summer camp or something along those lines way back when. So interesting lore between her and Ash, that is for sure. And I dare say if there was ever going to be a character that Ash was going to end up with, it is going to be Serena. They kind of have those kind of romance kind of story notes to them. She's gone out of her way to protect Ash, pretty much almost saving his life at one point when he gets really, really sick. And yeah, they definitely have those kind of romance notes, but it is Pokemon. It is a kid's show. So they kind of sidestep it, but a decent amount of it, I feel like, is for the most part implied. So I think if Ash was ever going to settle down after his obtaining the Pokemon Master title, it would definitely be Serena that he ends up with. And, she ends up getting into Pokemon contests, overcoming overcoming her fear of the stage and dealing with that, and actually ends up blossoming into like a very kind of strong, independent character, which is actually really good to see. I really like her character development. The only kind of negative thing is I don't like kind of her new look kind of halfway through the series. Just not a fan aesthetically, that is. But I'm not going to hold that against her at the end of the day. So Serena's actually going to end up as an S tier character. Once again, having this really strong kind of character arc, character growth, and I think she definitely deserves the S tier spot. All right, so next up is Cilan. So he was with Ash on the Black and White series as he's traveling Unova. So in general, my personal opinion on the Black and White series is it is absolutely the weakest series in Pokemon. In my opinion, it's kind of a weird time. I could tell that the Pokemon Company, whether it be the games or the anime, it just kind of felt lost and muddy, and I'm really happy they ended up finding their way in Sun and Moon, kind of switching up the formula and making it a little bit more interesting. But sadly, Cilan here kind of suffers from that element of not really knowing what's going to happen and like any direction in the show, besides kind of the usual Ash's general journey of trying to be a Pokemon master. So his whole thing is being a Pokemon connoisseur, and I don't really mean him eating Pokemon, but just making food in general. That's his big thing. That's kind of his claim to fame. He has like two other brothers that run a big time cafe, and he's kind of looking to find new tastes throughout the world and kind of bring that back so he can add his own kind of flavor to the menu. Ultimately kind of forgettable. Once again, not a whole lot of character growth. He doesn't really do anything. He's basically a stand-in for Brock, and all he really does is cook. That's kind of it. It's kind of like the most boring part of the Brock character. So yeah, I'm gonna end up putting him in the D tier. He's not a bad character. He's just kind of boring, to be honest with you. Not a really big fan of him. So with that, let's talk about Iris here. And in the anime, they don't really do a whole lot with her ultimately, because in the game, she actually becomes like the champion of Unova, which is kind of a more cool arc. But in the anime, the last time we see her is just going off to go fight another gym leader, I believe in Johto. At the beginning of it, she's very, very childish, very, very wild, but she does have some general character growth going on. A lot of times she will kind of self-project onto Ash, just kind of calling him a little kid all the time, even though he's older than her. She's kind of annoying in that way, but she does have some general character growth. She's much better at the end of the Black and White series as opposed to the beginning. So very kind of bland character in my book, for the most part, in terms of kind of character arc, where she ends up. If we're talking, more of like the game Iris, I think she'd be higher up, probably more around the lines of like a B tier. But that's not really what we see in the anime. She just doesn't really get that full arc. Kind of gets cut off a little bit too soon, in my opinion. So we're gonna just slot her into the C tier. Things are definitely heating up. We only got 4 left, and Brock and Misty are on them. So let's kind of split this up here. So let's start with Max here. So Max is actually May's younger brother, and that is literally all he is. He's kind of a know-it-all when it comes to Pokemon, which good for him. He's kind of pre-Rotom Dex, but not as funny and not as interesting, ultimately. So he starts the series as May's younger brother, annoying younger brother, and that's where he ends it, to be honest with you. Just slightly more experience. So Max is going to end up in the D tier category. Not that interesting of a character. They honestly could have just not had him tag along, in my opinion, and it'd be just as interesting. And they never kind of come back to Max, and I think for a reason. He's kind of forgettable. I don't think anyone really remembers necessarily Max in the Hoenn series. It's probably more May people remember, being honest. And besides the fact that she's also in the games too, she's just a much more memorable character overall. So, yeah, I do hope that they do kind of return to Max at some point, maybe give him his proper dues because he did travel with Ash for quite a while. And at the end, he did promise Ash that eventually, when he gets his own Pokemon, he's going to battle Ash, which we still have not seen. So I'm holding out hope that that does happen someday. But as of now, yeah, not super interesting, which is why he's in the D tier category. Let's talk May. So at the beginning, May is trying to be really into Pokemon contests. That's not how it starts. She ends up following Ash because, surprise, surprise, he fries her bike, and that's kind of how they end up traveling together. It's her, Brock, Max, and Ash on a journey through Hoenn. So she is a fairly interesting character. She definitely starts knowing literally nothing of Pokemon. Like, I'm pretty sure my 6-year-old would be a better Pokemon battler than May was when she started off, and ends as an absolute beast. She like goes 1v1 with Ash. Has been doing this for a while. In the same series, Ash takes on Articuno with one of the Frontier Brains, and she just like 1v1s him. Now, she does have a type advantage with her Blaziken, and then Ash has his Sceptile, but still really impressive, kind of from like literally knowing absolutely nothing to being somewhat interesting and being kind of a force to be reckoned with, I dare say. So I'm going to put May into the A tier category, slightly above Dawn, because I just feel like she does a lot more with her overall character growth. So yeah, I'm gonna put her in the A tier there. Let's do Misty. Let's rip this band-aid off right away here. So Misty obviously joins Ash because Ash fries her bike, and the entire time she's just like, basically buy me a new bike. And she eventually kind of forgets that, and there are some kind of, you know, drops of potential romance between her and Ash, but ultimately they just get snuffed out because Misty's kind of a jerk, to be honest with you. She's not the nicest character, very full of herself, puts down Ash a lot. She has kind of Ash's kind of ego check at a lot of times, which I do think is good. But she's not a nice girl. In my opinion. She starts off as a gym leader, and that's also where she ends up. They do have Misty kind of join up and kind of meet Ash again later on in later seasons. I think Sun and Moon being the most recent, and she's much more palatable there, I dare say. But as a whole, Misty is kind of really hit or miss. Either she's decent character or she's just mean, kind of god awful, and really throws Ash under the bus a lot. So I've been kind of in between where to put Misty on this entire time. I know a lot of fans of Misty exist. This was a lot of people's first anime crush. And yeah, there's a decent following behind Misty. I'm gonna have to put her. Oh, this is hard. I'm thinking C. I'm between C and D. Just she's not nice. She's not not a very nice character, and I don't think there's a whole lot of character growth there. But she was a mainstay in the series for a while when Kanto and Johto, and I think that kind of saves her. If she was kind of a one-off just character in Kanto, I think she would end up in the D tier. I think there's a little bit more character growth in Johto, although admittedly I've not seen the Johto arcs in a very long time. It's been a few years. It hasn't been like a decade or anything like that. It's only been like 4 or 5, but still, that's where she's gonna end up as C. So next up is the man himself, Brock. And what can I say about Brock? The guy starts off as a gym leader, wants to be a Pokemon breeder, and then ends up wanting to be a Pokemon doctor. I mean, man, what a character arc just in one sentence there alone. He's the man who will turn frying pans into drying pans. Any woman within a 1 mile radius, beware of Brock because he's that guy at the end of the day. But I do think Brock actually has a pretty good character arc in general. Starts off Pokemon breeder, ends up Pokemon doctor. while also taking care of his siblings as well. The kind of aura that Brock kind of lets off, being kind of, the wannabe womanizer and falling in love with every woman he sees. That's just kind of like the exterior. Once you get past that, I feel like there's a really good character in Brock. Family guy, takes care of his family, basically confronts his dead dad. And he does really care about Pokemon. At the end of the day, that is his lifeblood. That is his passion. Is just being a caring guy. So I do hope that Brock ends up with the woman of his dreams that will take good care of him, and of course, he'll take good care of her. I will say the one thing that does hold him back is the fact that he basically falls in love with every woman he sees. And whether it be, Max having to deal with him, Misty having to deal with him, or his Pokemon Krogunk, having to deal with his just constant going after women, it's definitely kind of a downfall there. That being said, yeah, the guy, there's a reason they kept him around for multiple seasons. Kanto, Johto, they kind of, skip the Orange Islands there because they have, Tracey. But then he sticks around for Hoenn and Sinnoh. That's 4 regions. He's been like half the regions at this point with Ash. He's a mainstay. They kept on trying to get rid of him, but he kept on coming back. He's like the old dog that you kind of let out outside and you're like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to see you again, but, be free, go find them lady dogs, I guess, and just always comes back at the end of the day. So yeah, Brock's gonna end up on the A tier, where I feel like he really belongs. Just in general, good character. So this is my tier list. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sure it's going to be fairly controversial. I know I have some fan favorite characters lower on the tier list, and probably not so favorite characters a little bit higher up. But let me know down in the comments what you think of the tier list. Did I get this completely wrong? Did I absolutely botch this, or was I fairly close? So yeah, let me know down in the comments. And if you ever want to send me your Pokemon companion tier list as well, feel free to send that to me. I'm really kind of curious to see what you guys think as well. So hey, thank you so much for watching. I had a fantastic time putting this together. So if you enjoyed the content, hit like and subscribe if you'd like more. And of course, have a fantastic rest of your day. Do something good for yourself and take care.